Hello everyone. So we've had a phenomenal ride. Over the last 16 years, we've seen Bitcoin go from the plaything of a small group of cypherpunks on an IRC channel all the way to the world's first new asset class of the digital age. A $2 trillion asset which is growing still exponentially, averaging over 60% growth annualized. Amazing. But at the same time, the application layer which exists around Bitcoin, the smart contracts, the services, the dApps that represent the economy of the crypto space, right, that we just call crypto, is going through a bit of a difficult moment. The reality is that we are in the trough of disillusionment. People are asking, why have all of the infrastructure and technologies and dApps and smart contract chains that we've built out not introduced a much greater degree of real-world use? Not in DeFi, not in gaming, not really anywhere. Why has all of this application layer not grown in the same way and with the same consistency as Bitcoin? And this question has driven a lot of people in this crypto space to become sort of financial nihilists. And so what Yago was saying about meme coins and games is all true, but there is, while under the surface there is a really important aspect of community, an aspect of playing for fun, an aspect of culture. The reality is that the sharp turn towards meme coins has to a great extent been a reflection of a certain financial nihilism, where we have sort of given up on really changing the world and are now willing to speculate and gamble and try and make the next 10x. So different people have different answers for why we're in this trough of disillusionment for crypto. Some people say it's because we have too many chains. Other people say it's because we don't have enough chains, right? We need a multi-chain world where every single chain can do something specific. Some people talk about the problems of bridging, the lack of security, the hacks that have occurred, and how difficult it is to build, therefore, significant real-world use cases. And perhaps, even more importantly, out of all of the digital experiences that are out there, crypto is perhaps unique in the fact that year after year, the UI experience, the user experience in many ways actually gets worse, gets more confusing, more fragmented. And people also point to the fact that the largest and most important asset that we have in this space is sort of a stranded asset. BTC is something that people just sit on and sort of bury in the garden and don't do or feel like they can't do anything with. A huge amount of economic value that is going untapped. So what I would like to suggest today is that all of these problems are true and represent part of the story, but they represent actually symptoms of a single core issue that we have in crypto. And that single core issue is that crypto as an industry, crypto as the internet of value, lacks an operating system. If you think about the history of every single digital economy, digital paradigm that we've ever had, everything from mainframes to cloud servers to personal computing to mobile phones to the internet itself. In each of these cases, it started out as a group of developers building something quite simple. The value started to be realized, large numbers of companies and developers started to build on it, and what emerged was an incredibly complicated and fragmented ecosystem. And so in every single one of these cases, what has ultimately emerged as the key component for unifying the experience, unifying the technology, and making it possible for developers to actually build useful tools that users can easily use is an operating system. Everything from Windows back in the day through to the Netscape Navigator and then Explorer browser, and today iOS and Android. Without them, can you imagine the complexity of trying to manage different applications on your phone without having a unifying operating system? And so the question is, if the lack of operating system in crypto is a problem, why has it not emerged? In fact, the problem is even worse than that. People aren't even talking about the problem. And I think the reason for that is that the entire world of crypto is a network. And it is connected to Bitcoin. We all know this, right? Bitcoin goes up, crypto goes up. Bitcoin goes down, crypto goes down. It's implicit. Bitcoin is the network which provides the trust for the entire system, has driven the adoption time and time again by opening up new markets. Now it is opening up the institutional market for the rest of crypto. And it is the one system that looks different from all of these other applications, right? All of the other systems and platforms and projects in crypto compete with each other. But the one system that people do not compete with, that is credibly neutral and has the kind of network effect that would be necessary in order to actually create a unifying operating system, that one system is Bitcoin. And the problem with Bitcoin is that Bitcoin has been an island. It's simply the case that the technology to build an operating system for crypto has not existed until 6 months ago. 6 months ago, after many years of significant work, something remarkable happened on Bitcoin. On block 853.626, for the first time ever, without making any changes to the underlying platform that is Bitcoin, on Bitcoin mainnet as we all use it and know it, we were able to verify a new type of cryptography called a zero-knowledge proof. So if this is Bitcoin, what we were able to do is, for the first time, provide the ability to take external compute, any kind of computation. This could be a computation on another chain like Ethereum or Arbitrum or Cardano, or a smart contract, and take that complicated computation, fold it up into a proof that gets embedded onto Bitcoin, written to Bitcoin, verified on Bitcoin, and most importantly, executable on Bitcoin. So this has been a missing link that has completely that has completely escaped us until recently. Until recently, everyone sort of had this dream. Vitalik described it as providing Bitcoin with functional escape velocity, the ability to give Bitcoin just enough additional power to be able to connect to other systems and do other things. And we are now, for the first time, in an environment where that is possible with Bitcoin. So that was a really phenomenal breakthrough, which we're very proud of. And we've open sourced it, and various developers have begun to use it. But to make it useful, what we need to do is go that extra step and build an operating system built on Bitcoin. And so what we are building is a full operating system which is going to allow Bitcoin not just to become itself a programmable layer, but also to allow all of the rest of crypto to become layers built on Bitcoin, secured by Bitcoin, and most importantly, unified into a true network effect with Bitcoin. And these components include Grail. Grail is the ability for us to, for the first time ever, take BTC and move it across chains trustlessly without having to use a multisig or a federation or take on the trust assumptions of a third party. I'll come back to Grail in a moment. The second component is the first kind of smart contract on Bitcoin. We call it a vault because it has a very, very minimal input. It is the ability to lock up Bitcoin or other types of assets on the Bitcoin ledger, and then have an external smart contract, which could exist on a server somewhere or could exist on a different chain, provide instructions, perform the complex computation, and provide the instructions to that vault on how it should move assets or what it should do with those assets on the basis of ZK proofs. And then, perhaps The part I'm right now most excited about is we're introducing a new type of token standard anchored to Bitcoin, providing for the first time programmable tokens to Bitcoin, right? We've seen ordinals, we've seen BRC20, we've seen runes, but we've never seen a truly programmable token on Bitcoin. Charms is a new type of token standard, not just for Bitcoin, but for crypto as a whole. We're now introducing the first third generation token standard. The first generation of tokens were things like BTC, XRP, ETH. They were hard-coded into the chain and were governed by only those rules which were hard-coded into the chain. Because that wasn't good enough, on Ethereum they invented the second generation of tokens, ERC20. These were tokens which could have full programmability. They were created by a smart contract created on that chain, but all of the intelligence, all of the smart contract programmability was lost if you tried to bridge that token to another chain, because the smart contracts existed only on one chain. Charms are a third generation, and they are new in several important ways. First of all, it is a single standard that allows you to create any kind of token, NFTs, fungible tokens, and anything in between. Second, these are tokens that can exist on any chain. They can move trustlessly between chains. And perhaps most importantly, this is for the first time a token standard which actually contains the smart contract logic inside of it. So if you are using it with a smart contract, it sort of carries that smart contract logic around with it like a snail carries its shell. And so you can have tokens on multiple different chains all interacting with the same smart contract for the very first time. What this means for developers is that they can now deploy a smart contract or a dApp once and allow it to interact with the entire crypto ecosystem. And that brings me to Merkle Mesh, which is the system designed to be anchored and unified with Bitcoin security, which allows all of these different chains that are now integrating with us to be interoperable with each other. Composability, not just for a single ecosystem, but for the whole ecosystem. The ability to have your assets on one chain and to interact with a smart contract on an entirely different chain trustlessly. This is an entirely new way of thinking about crypto. But the crazy thing is, and I know hopefully some of you are skeptical because I'm making some very big claims here. This is really, a totally new way of thinking about crypto. But the crazy thing is that it's happening right now. We already have multiple significant players in the space who are racing to integrate with this work. Ethereum is being integrated, Cardano is being integrated, most of the significant Bitcoin layer 2s are being integrated, and more. And so to explain that, I need to now reveal to you for the very first time our secret master plan. Because the big challenge with anything like this is how do you actually get it adopted? This is a very, very big idea. It's very ambitious, but we have to start somewhere. And so our goal is not to go directly to the end game of a fully unified crypto space, but instead to provide something so powerful and so useful that everyone wants to integrate what we've built. In other words, we need a killer app. And our killer app is this. The reason that everyone is integrating with us is what I was discussing previously. It's Grail. It's the fact that for the first time ever, we can allow all of the DeFi applications on Avalanche, on Arbitrum, on Ethereum, on Cardano to finally have access to BTC trustlessly, to finally start providing yield or Bitcoin-backed stable coins or trading with Bitcoin without ever having to go through a third party, not WBTC or not any federation or not a centralized service. And this is the killer app that has been bringing the rest of crypto to want to integrate with what we're doing with Bitcoin OS. And it's a huge potential market. We already know that just right now, there are hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin which have already been staked or introduced into WBTC or placed on centralized services for borrowing and lending. And when you collect all of what is even just now being used, the total TVL is larger than the entire TVL of Ethereum. That is just the difference in scale between Bitcoin and everything else. Thank you very much.